Tonight, the voice of Congressman John Lewis is silenced, but you will hear from the Norfolk-based author who took that voice in 1997 and penned Lewis's best-selling memoir. The title is Walking with the Wind. As Lewis is laid to rest, there is hope those on the front lines of today's civil rights movement will learn from the soldiers of the past. 80-year-old South Carolina Congressman James Clyburn, who fought alongside the young John Lewis, is concerned the Black Lives Matter movement could get off track, just as the civil rights movement of the 60s suffered a setback when urban areas were burned to the ground.
They want to be more militant. And in fact, their slogan became "Burn, Baby, Burn." That was not John's way.
Memoir co-author Mike Dorso has heard similar concerns. I'm not seeing a formula in many of the protests taking place in America today.
Good point. It's a question a lot of people who were a part of the movement back then.
In the three-time bestseller, Walking with the Wind, Lewis and Dorso explained the anatomy of the nonviolent movement. When the soldiers of yesterday staged a sit-in at a segregated lunch counter, they were given instructions on what to wear, what to say, and what to do when they were attacked by an angry mob.
They would role play. 5 or 6 of them would pretend to be the white mob, and they would surround, say, 2 of them in chairs, and would just spit at them, would holler at them. They didn't actually urinate on them, which eventually happened. But they went as far as they could to make it real in these training sessions.
And Lewis learned not to strike back, even when his life was in danger.
What he did with every one of these people, he imagined that person as the infant they once were. Before the world had done whatever it did to them to make them what they are now, they were once that infant, innocent infant. Wow. And he kept that in his mind and had no hatred, could not have it. I said, John, I couldn't do it.
50 years later, the nation is in turmoil again without the leadership of the last freedom rider.
But when it's someone like John, it wasn't just John that passed away. He's the last freedom rider. He's the last of so many things.
Today, the New York Times published Lewis's last opinion piece. He wrote, "So I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide."